Well, we are less than 1 week now away from finally seeing the PlayStation 5, at least in action. Games for the system that we can look forward to after the launch later on this holiday. It's been a ride, right? Waiting for this to finally happen. We've done things like seen the logo, we've read Wired articles, we saw a whole GDC presentation from Mark Cerny that like 90% of people fell asleep at, but finally we get to see what we all want to see, which are games. That's exciting. So on Thursday, June 4th, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be treated to roughly an hour presentation of games. Now, it doesn't appear to be a live presentation. It looks like they're going to be doing it, I guess, through like Zoom and Skype and stuff. So we'll see how that goes down. But I want to talk today about what we can expect and some of my predictions for it. Now, first things first, this is going to be one of several PS5 events, according to Jim Ryan. So I don't think they're going to just throw everything out there. I don't think we're just going to see like 20 or 30 games in the span of an hour and they just rapid fire through them and we see games that don't come out for like another 3 or 4 years. I'm starting to think more that they want to focus on what could even just be the first year of the PlayStation 5, starting with this event, and anything that would come out much later, they might save for as we get closer to release even of something we can look forward to well into the future, especially since Sony has become aware, of course, of the Xbox 2020 setup, where over the course of the next few months, we're going to get Xbox events. It almost seems like, Sony being Sony wants to counter Microsoft at every step with their own announcement. So let's get started with some of the things that I don't think will be at this event. Number one, I don't think we're going to hear anything about VR. I think there will be a PlayStation VR 2 presentation at some point in the future, possibly next year after this console has launched. But at that point, they're throwing all these accessories in front of us, including a piece that could end up being as expensive as the PlayStation 5 console itself. I think they want to just get the PlayStation 5 console out there, get that manufactured and ready to go, and then worry about a VR headset, a successor to the PlayStation VR, maybe next year after manufacturing and all of that come more available, we'll say, and running. So no VR talk, I don't think, here. The other thing, I don't think there will be any price or release date here. I believe price and release date will probably be saved for a press release. I don't think they want to walk out on stage and point to a big screen, or have a pre-recording and put up a big slide that says $500 for the PS5, because that's not exciting, I guess. It's like, oh yeah, we kind of already figured that. If it was $400, then they might want to show up and say, look, it's $400, but like $500, Release date, if it's before November, that would be an exciting thing, but if it's like, I don't know, mid-November, second week of November, everyone once again will just be like, yeah, okay, we kind of already knew that. But those are like the big things that I can pretty much rule out. I do think we will see the system. It's going to mass production. That's typically when images of the shell of the console will start to leak, because, well, people on the manufacturing floor will just take a picture of it. It seems to happen quite a bit. So I kind of feel like they want to show it to us so they can start using it in marketing as well, whether it's in stores or in trailers or just online, rather than show us the controller or even just the logo constantly. They probably want to start putting the box and showing us the box constantly leading up to release so that we know what we're buying when we walk into the store. Now, I think they also need to go over smart delivery, whatever their version of smart delivery is from Microsoft, which is like the cross-gen, cross-buy setup where you buy something on the PlayStation 4 and then it automatically becomes available on the PlayStation 5 as well. Like if you buy a PS4 disc, can we then take that, drop it in the PS5, it gets the PlayStation 5 version of the game? Is that something that we will have for the PlayStation? It's not necessarily been talked about that much by Sony, but that might not be as exciting to people as seeing, some big first-party game from Sony. But I really think they need to sit down and take the time to explain to us how all of that is going to work, since Microsoft just keeps talking about how every game you have, going back to like the original Xbox, will follow you, okay, to the next gen Xbox Series X. And I think Sony could use Last of Us Part 2 or even Ghost of Tsushima to kind of show that off, and maybe even talk about how you'll get patches that enhance load times or visuals or frame rate on top of that as well for games that are built for it. I hope they also go into maybe some detail about backwards compatibility beyond the PS4, but there's a good chance that that won't exist from what we're hearing. I mean, you think Sony would have really ran around and talked about that even at GDC if they had a really good way to accomplish PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 and PS1 all at once, but they didn't. However, I'm still hopeful for that, and maybe this would be a place for them to talk about it. I also want to see them kind of take us on a very quick tour of the UI. So like they legitimately just plug in a capture card and fire up a PlayStation 5 and say, hey, look, this is what it looks like when the thing starts up. Here's me jumping around, and you see how fast it is. It's not slower at times like the PlayStation 4. And then maybe pick a game that's about to be revealed or has been revealed and is like, hey, this is how you jump into the multiplayer of it. This is how you hover over the game, and then it shoots out with like your saved games, and you could jump into a checkpoint immediately. That was something that was kind of mentioned at one point. This ability to jump into a game rapidly, specifically to a certain point. And I hope they really go in depth with visuals, like showing us how this will be accomplished easily. Again, it's not all as exciting as games, but I think the UI is going to be very important since we're going to look at it every time we turn the system on. Okay, so with those parts out of the way, let's get into some of the games. I've picked out a few games here that I think we can see. I'm a little 50-50 on one of them because now we're hearing, like I said, that even Sony's saying multiple PS5 events, and they're going to want to save some of these games for those events. It all depends on release date, the roadmap they have set up internally for each game, what's a launch title, what's a game that might come out next holiday. It all kind of factors in, but I think the biggest thing you have to do is you have to start the presentation strong, and you have to end it strong. And the way you start it strong is you roll up with Blue Point's game. And I think it is Demon Souls, a remake of Demon Souls. Apparently, it is amazing looking, and that's one of the biggest reasons that I think you want to open with it, because it looks that impressive. Like, if it really does look that good, you want to make a first impression with the PlayStation 5 with a game that is visually impressive, and that's what you do. You throw it up there, and I think people will be pretty excited for Demon Souls Remake, especially, of course, if you are a Souls fan. That's going to be right away getting you paying attention to this presentation. Now, they're going to show us some launch titles as well. I think Ratchet & Clank will be a launch title, and I've said before, I think it can look really, really good, and I just think that's a good way to introduce the PlayStation 5 alongside of more realistic visuals like what could be in Demon Souls. You kind of throw Ratchet & Clank in there. I mean, it's a fun game. It's not going to go win any awards or anything, but I believe it could just be a better knack for the PlayStation 5 when that launches, and I would look forward to that. I would pick up Ratchet & Clank day one on the PlayStation 5 when I grab the system. I do think they're going to want to show some kind of car game, and I was trying to figure out if they would have the next Gran Turismo ready to go, like Gran Turismo 7, but they keep updating Gran Turismo Sport, and maybe 7 is something that they will be saving for midway through the generation with the PS5, and it's very possible that they take Gran Turismo Sport, move it onto the PS5 through updates, and have all kinds of really cool visual stylings to show. Like, they could be like, oh, here is this brand new concept car, and we're going to hit it with, ray tracing, and it's going to be at 120 frames per second at 4K, or you can cut the frame rate down to like 30 frames, and look, here's 8K, and that might just be for them to be able to put 8K somewhere on the picture and be like, yep, we can do it too. But I think a racing game, of course, is going to be one of the better examples of visuals and what the PlayStation 5 can do. And if Gran Turismo 7 is not ready, because it seems to take them a long, long time to do Gran Turismo games, move Sport up, show it off here, and then you could even use it again when you decide to show VR the following year for Gran Turismo Sport's VR mode. I think it just makes sense to move Gran Turismo Sport over. It already looks really good. You move it over to the PS5 with all of the extra features, and then it, of course, looks even better. Now, the game that I'm 50-50 on right now is Silent Hill. It seems that there has been, I don't want to say complete backtracking on it, but it does appear that Dusk Golem has become less confident in it being at this event, and I think that has to do with Sony saying there will be multiple events. I think Silent Hill will happen. I think it's going to go to the PS5 as a third-party exclusive with Sony, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be shown here, mostly because I think Resident Evil 8 is going to be shown here, and that's going to fit into that same kind of genre, and maybe Sony's like, okay, we'll hold off one of these, and I think Silent Hill isn't going to be coming out for a little while. We're still like 2 years off of Silent Hill. That could be a holiday 2022 game. And if that is the case and Resident Evil 8 is sooner, which it sounds like it is, and while that is a third-party game, Sony seems to always show off Resident Evil games. Like, we just saw Resident Evil 3 with them. We saw Resident Evil 2 with them. 7, of course, leveraged the PlayStation 4 with its VR. They have a very good relationship with the Resident Evil games, and based on what's been said about 8, it's going to look ridiculous, and it can debut at the PlayStation event. So we still need some third-party games, obviously, and that's going to be the hardest thing to figure out because we're in this part now in the year where things are very uncertain right now. There's no E3, right? We have Summer Games Fest. We have this IGN event going on. There's stuff all over the place, and it's hard to figure out where things are going to pop up. But I do think EA will have some sort of presence at this event with Sony, and I kind of think it's just going to be them showing off something like FIFA. Here's FIFA 21, get ready for this holiday where we have this ready to go. Maybe they also talk about how it's like a cross-gen thing. That's something I could see them doing, is just literally showing up with like a FIFA or well, they're already going to show a Madden, but that FIFA is very, very popular in like Europe, obviously, and Sony is very popular there. So like, hey, show up with FIFA, show that off for a little bit, and then they kind of move along. There is a possibility that Activision could be at this event with the next Call of Duty. That would be kind of neat to see that. And they've done this before where they've shown up to like Microsoft's event for the Xbox One where they showed off Call of Duty. I could see them showing up here. Activision and Sony have been working together with like DLC being exclusive to the PlayStation 4 recently. And maybe they want to show off the next Call of Duty we'll just call it Call of Duty 2021, although it's looking like they're going to use the Black Ops branding, which will be interesting to see that. And then there have been rumors about Crash Bandicoot, and that'd be really cool to show here too, although Activision might want to hold off and like show that separately during the summer games. Like, I almost look at Crash Bandicoot and it's like a brand new Crash Bandicoot in 2020, or if it's 2021, would be pretty neat to have as like a Summer Games Fest thing. But like, if Sony wants to show it here, because they could have like timed exclusivity like they've had before with like Insane Trilogy, they would of course want to show it here. And if it's a launch title for the PS5, that would be a big deal. And then we have to close out, and I think they might be closing out with an extended gameplay look. It could be a launch title. I believe it'll be shown off to really push the PS5 and show what the PS5 is capable of, specifically with big open worlds, right? Load times, all of this. And if they do like a 10-minute gameplay session, which they've been doing quite a bit. Last of Us, they just did one. Ghost of Tsushima, they did one. If they show up here and they do Horizon Zero Dawn 2 as like a full 10-minute gameplay, just sit down, play the game, and it looks ridiculous. They do some crazy stuff to show off how fast the world can be drawn in, some advanced AI mechanics, and then it shows up and it says Holiday 2020, so that it is launching alongside the PlayStation 5. That would be a phenomenal way to close out this event. Guerrilla Games is very good at showing off, obviously, what systems can do. I know not everyone was super thrilled on like what Killzone was when the PS4 was being debuted, but you gotta admit it looked good. Like, it looked good. And Horizon Zero Dawn 2, I think, would look amazing on the PS5. And again, the open world aspect to it would do a lot to show what the PS5 can do. Also, you may have noticed that I did not mention God of War 2 or Spider-Man 2 here, and that's because I'm more thinking that Horizon Zero Dawn 2 would be a launch title, and those other two games could be coming out in a year or two. And since Sony has said that they are doing multiple events coming up, I pretty much had 3 big games that Sony could show here from their first-party studios, which would be Horizon Zero Dawn 2, God of War 2, or Spider-Man 2 as a launch title, and I'm kind of leaning more towards Horizon Zero Dawn 2 to really show things off, as it is a big open world style game, which is what we assume they're going to go for. So that's kind of why I pushed more towards Horizon here rather than the other two. I could see Spider-Man 2 coming out in 2021, and then God of War 2 being a 2022 title. But those are just some of my predictions and thoughts on what we could see here, what we can expect. sometimes we'll go off the rails and predict like 50 games or something. So I wanted to be a little more reserved here, conservative with some of the predictions, but we will be talking about it as well tonight on the Spawncast, so make sure you come by and check it out. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about this and some other things, I think, as well that should be popping up. But let me know what you guys think about this event down below and what you think could be there. I'm very curious. See if anyone gets anything right down in the comments. Make sure you guys like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.